at 13 minutes past 8 o'clock. Founders, She Is Not Your Rehab, Matt and Sarah Brown, have received a special recognition by the Queen Elizabeth herself as they represented New Zealand as the 218th Commonwealth Points of Light Award recipients. She Is Not Your Rehab is a global movement which aims to address the culture around abusive relationships, domestic violence, and of course, even unhealthy ideals of masculinity. But we are so privileged to be joined now with She Is Not Your Rehab co-founder, Matt Brown. With that, I say malore sufua. Welcome to the show.
Talofa lava. Thank you for having me.
As always, Matt, and look, thank you so much for giving your time this morning. I would say, firstly, congratulations on receiving and receiving this award. What was the initial reaction, though, from when you guys actually were announced winners?
Oh, thank you, sis. Very, very humbled and honored to receive this award. But to my dear mum would have been all over this. She loved the crown, she loved the queen, she loved anyone, prime minister, she would have been all over there. But for me personally, it is just an award, and I'm very grateful for it. But for me, the acknowledgement from the men inside prison, the men that we work with, the men who struggle to communicate, who struggle with violence, that's my greatest reward when I see men change that narrative for their own lives. That's all I really care about. And while our statistics with family violence is still high, for me, it's just another award. Until those numbers come down, then I'll be happy and I can rest.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that's the reward or the award that you're looking for.
Yes, most
when we do see those numbers come down, I suppose the update that we'd love to get, though, is, She Is Not Your Rehab. I remember watching the live stream when you guys were launching it and everything. From there to now, what's the progress been like?
It's been amazing. We've gotten all our books into every prison. We approached our publisher, Penguin, and we wanted to have every book inside prisons in New Zealand. And so we bought 9,300 books. We'd raised money for it. And so every family violence, stopping violence program, prison, women's refuge have now received the book. And so the letters, the men behind the wire have just so resonated with the book. I'm literally receiving letters, multiple letters every day from them. And that's, for me, is the greatest reward. So our next challenge is we really want to move over to Australia, because a lot of people have been writing to us. A lot of our Pacifica families who are in Australia have written to us like, my brother, my uncle needs to read this book. How can they access it? And so our next goal is to raise money to infiltrate the prisons over in Australia and get the books there. And from what we know, there's about 45,000 people incarcerated in Australia.
And you talk about getting your books into the prisons. Have you maybe had any sort of feedback on the impact of the prisoners there being able to read the books?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like I said, I receive letters every day from the men inside prison, but then also messages in our on our social media from their partners, just saying my husband is just a different person. He can't wait to come home, and he's resonated with the story so much. Because I speak quite raw in the book of my own upbringing and what it was like witnessing family violence and addiction throughout my whole childhood. And so a lot of these men feel like, I'm telling their story, which when we wrote it, this is not just my story, because, when you grow up in the hood or grow up in this world of violence, you talk to your friends about it, for a lot of us Pacifica kids, but we just laugh it off. We make jokes about it. We humorize it to try and survive. But I suppose addressing it was really our goal to, because I was that kid waiting at home for dad when dad got out of prison, hoping and praying when dad got out that he would change. He'll be a different man. He had access to new tools and new insights, but that was never the case for us. And so I wanted to write this book for people like my dad.
It's such a beautiful thing, because obviously I see your posts on social media, and when you share your stories about who your father was then to now who he is now, there's obviously that level of I suppose the power of forgiveness, and especially the fact that our Pacific people have really we're overrepresented in these statistics.
Yes.
How is it for you as a Samoan man, coming out from that, from I suppose the trauma that you grew up with, to being where you are today, literally being a formidable force with your wife? Can you maybe share the journey briefly, just how it's been for you?
It's been it's been a beautiful journey. It's been a hard journey, but most definitely beautiful. For me, when I think back to my parents who immigrated from Samoa to New Zealand for a better life, but they didn't have the right tools to communicate in this whole new world,
Mm.
English being their second language. And so for my father, when I look back, I try and humanize my childhood monster, us young Pacifica boys or boys and girls who were born here in New Zealand. We live in two different worlds. At home, mum and dad, are law, but then at school, we're educated to think for ourselves. And so it was very conflicting. At home you couldn't think for yourself, but then at school you had to think for yourself. Um, and so it's just navigating through that has been a journey, but changing the narrative has been beautiful. It's my duty understanding intergenerational healing now, not just talking about our trauma and our pain, but changing the narrative and understanding intergenerational healing. I've
Mm.
now learned and come to understand it is my duty, you know to live in the fullness of the dream of that mum and dad have had when they moved to New Zealand for a better life. And so it's
Wow.
my duty now to live and honor that in fullness. And that starts first at home by respecting my wife, not raising my hand at my wife. It's all right
Mm.
to take a no. It's all right to no is a perfect answer. And to also understand my children. Children are going to be children. They're going to annoy you and hit you up to the roof. But it's all right to learn different ways how to discipline and talk to them.
Mm, I love that. I love that. If you're tuning in, we are speaking with She Is Not Your Rehab co-founder, Matt Brown. Matt, obviously the movement itself, it's become global. But where would you actually like to see the movement grow in the next sort of 5 years?
Um, oh, our goal, we with the climate that we're in with COVID, it's definitely robbed a lot of us from this face-to-face community gatherings that we would usually have. And so we're moving into the online space, which is where our people are, especially our young people. So we are developing an app called Inner Boy,
Wow.
which will be released this half of the year. And it's a 30-day program for 30 minutes for men to really just jump on and journey, take the journey of healing by reparenting themselves. And
Mm,
it's an app that will have access to our stories, to other men healing and what it's like for them. But we really want to infiltrate pop culture. That's where our
mm,
people are. Our young people are online, and
yeah.
so for us, we are working on globalizing this movement more through the online space.
You've been able to obviously write a book, you've been able to raise funds and stuff like that. But is there anything I suppose the community can help with? Is there any support that we can come alongside you guys?
Yeah, I think normalizing this conversation, like these beautiful things that I love about our culture, but there's some things I choose not to take. And there's things that we've made culture that were never our culture, and so for me, it's reframing, it's rewriting what is our culture. And so for me, normalizing this conversation within our households, it's talking about family violence to our children, making them understand it. Um, but also I would love people to support us with getting this book out more to all our people.
Nice.
Um, yeah, support us with the prison work of getting these books into the prisons in Australia, or to whoever needs it, will
Mm,
be awesome. So follow us on our social media handles. Buy a
yeah.
book. It's in all local bookstores here in New Zealand. You can buy
Mm.
it online. So
Love, love. Matt, I'd love to know, as we wrap up, I suppose you probably say this all the time, what's your encouraging words, to our Pacifica people, our communities, especially the men. But if we were to specifically see someone in that situation, that is probably going through domestic violence, really, what is something that we can do? Because I know a lot of us like to rush in and, want to save the day. But is there an actual tactical way, or just, something that we can do, hopefully, to be able to just be maybe a listening ear to someone who's
Yeah.
going through that? Yeah.
Listening does wonders. I think to tala noa, to kōrero, to speak up is the first and most important thing, because shame is very crippling for our people, for humans, especially our community, the Pacifica community. Shame is used as a tool to discipline, but shame has no power when we speak the truth, when we bring the truth into the light.
Yeah.
And so I always believe approaching, if you do see it, if you do hear it, because it's in our neighborhoods, we hear it. I think it's important to have the courage to address it with truth and compassion and love. These people get scared, or maybe they'll react or they'll get angry at me. But the thing is, when you bring that stuff to the light, it's you can't help but really acknowledge it and realize, okay, this is not good what I'm doing.
Yeah. And even if someone, if there's a person who's listening now, right, and they're in the midst of it, any encouragement as to how they may be able to seek help?
Yes, there's help all around you. I really believe people want to help. People want to help, but you have to really want to help yourself. And so please, please, please reach out. And I speak that up from my own experience of my mum. She rang the police, she rang Women's Refuge Home. I had lived in every women's refuge home in Christchurch, where I'm from, by the age of 10. And so the help is there. The help is there. People want to help, and you're not alone. Family violence does not discriminate. I've seen, working in the sector over the last decade, it's not just poor, brown, low decile areas. The rich, the white picket fence communities have struggle with family violence too. They just have more access or more money to get the help. So for our people, I strongly encourage you. It's all right. There's no shame. Don't be mad to ask for help. We're out here. There's people out here that want to help.
And finally, I'd just like to say, is there anyone, I suppose, the fact that, you guys received this award, but anyone that you'd like to sort of maybe acknowledge or thank who has been part of this journey thus far?
I want to thank everyone who has resonated with our kaupapa, anyone that has resonated with this movement. I dedicate this award to my mum. I dedicate this award to every kid who has grown up and witnessed family violence. I dedicate this award to all the victims, to our women, especially our Pacifica women, who for too long have survived by just coping and putting up with, our men's bad behavior. I dedicate this award to them. We are here today because of our strong women who have birthed us and nurtured us to be the young men that we are today. But I also dedicate this award to our men behind the wire, men who struggle with family violence, because we have to understand people who perpetrate violence were once upon a time a victim themselves. And so until we understand that, it takes a community to really shift culture.
Love. Matt, we could be here all day having this conversation. I absolutely love, the work that you and Sarah do. So again, please give my love to Sarah, and just thank you for coming on the show and sharing what She Is Not Your Rehab all about. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, sis. Appreciate it.
No worries. No